this episode, we have Johnnie Gomez, Senior Brand Designer at Webflow. But before we proceed, let's have a word from our sponsor, UX Plus University. Welcome back. So be sure to stick around until the end of this episode where we'll give away awesome Webflow merch to those participants that participate in our live Q&A and throw out awesome questions. So stick around for that. Our guest for today's interview is Johnnie Gomez. So Johnnie is a dog lover, sticker collector, music aficionado, a conference enthusiast, and also he's senior brand designer at Webflow. So he recently moved with his wife, Dani, all the way to Miami, Florida from Buenos Aires. So we'll chat about that, and also we'll chat about his life in Webflow, where he creates awesome experiences for the enterprise team, the lifecycle team, the growth team. Super excited to get this going. Let's proceed to our interview with Johnnie. Hi, Johnnie. Thanks for being here. Glad you could join us.
Thank you very much, Christian. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So for everyone that's watching, Johnnie is a senior brand designer at Webflow. He's a visual developer. He's been doing certain things that you might have seen across the site, whether it's the case studies site or one of many things he's done over at Webflow. So let's get into it. Johnnie, where did you grow up and how's it like growing up there?
Yes. So I was born in Argentina, Buenos Aires, capital city. Lovely city that I've got to love more once I've left. Argentina is not going through the best moment right now, like socioeconomically. So I had my strong opinion, but once I moved out and I left people there and I left experiences there, I started to really appreciate what the city is and what it offers and how amazing it is. How Buenos Aires is, some people call it like the Paris of South America, just because there's a lot of like European architecture, a lot of European influence. And it's an amazing city that I miss a lot. And I went to high school there. I started college there, dropped out to be honest, but still started it. And I moved to Washington, D.C. in January 2019.
Oh, that's fairly recent. Good to hear. Like, how was your childhood in Buenos Aires? And were you an artist? Were there seeds of being a designer very early on back then?
Yeah, honestly, when I was young, I wanted to be a chemical engineer. I don't know what happened. I think I started to realize that it was too complex for me, that it was like too many numbers, too many formulas. And when I was 15, I started I started doing signatures for forums, profile pictures.
I did that too.
It was great. People appreciated it. And I was 15 years old and I was charging like $5 on PayPal. And that was like, at that point, PayPal wasn't that big and even not that big in Argentina. So I didn't really know how I was going to get the money, but I did know that it was going somewhere. And for me, being 15 years old and just like getting paid to do like forum signatures, usually like GIFs, not even like smooth GIFs, one screen, another screen with like contact information, like how many posts you've done and stuff like that. And that's when I started seeing like, I did draw and illustrate and paint, but that was like my first approach to designing in a computer. And after that, my mind exploded. Like I was using Photoshop 7 and it was just, I don't know, I just fell in love with it. And that's when I decided to follow that career. Buenos Aires, growing up there, again, love the city. There's something about, I don't know if it's perhaps something that does not happen in the States, that does happen everywhere else. Argentina is a city where you go to kindergarten. Usually those kids from kindergarten end up going to high school. Those kids from high school end up going to college, but they're still living around the area. So nobody's like moving out. Right. So you could be like 45 years old and you're still hanging out with your friends back from high school.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
something that I miss so much, just because the States is very, there's like a school system with like lottery that you're assigned to the school that you have to go, unless you want to like pay for a private school. Then perhaps you live in New York and you go to study college in California, and then you got a job offer in Seattle. So
Right.
you kind of are building relationships as you're growing. And
Right.
if you ask someone like, okay, so what happened to this friend that you had in high school? It's like, oh, I've never seen him again. And for me, I generally know what everybody's up to from my high school, just because it's like it's different in Argentina. It's like it's relationships are just like more cultivated and fed. I miss that, honestly.
That's great to hear, and awesome that you spoke about early signs of design. Like, were you influenced from your background? Like, how has, I guess, your background influenced what you do now?
So I always felt like I needed a creative output. There was music, which is still a big output for me, or art, whether it's like illustrating or drawing, or just starting to discover like how to use Photoshop and creating things, and just like adding on a bunch of layers with different blending modes, and just to see what's out there.
Right.
A lot of like clouds and different clouds in Photoshop. And that was like when I started to realize like I love this. I love this. I want to do this more. And it came to the point that my dad is like very musical. He plays instruments. He's very talented. And I just wanted to get to that same point of like really liking something and really enjoying it. And this field is where I found myself to enjoy it the most. And being a 15-year-old and starting to make that like small amount of money, I was like, what is the limit? I really want this. It was like that micro dose of happiness when I got like the $2 payment on PayPal. I was like, oh my God, like I'm getting paid. And it was always fun for me to think like, what do people on the other side of the world, what are they expecting me to look like? Like, are they aware that I'm like, at that point I was going by the name Vivia Design. They could imagine like a studio or like an agency. And it was just me, a 15-year-old, just like behind the computer.
That's awesome. Yeah, I resonate with that story so much. Like, I started designing like 13, 14, 15. Started designing signatures, but not people didn't pay me for it. Designed wallpapers, designed like those things. Designed websites for free, and then figured out like probably DeviantArt back then.
DeviantArt, yeah.
Sure like you post your stuff online, and then people suddenly message you asking for similar things, and that's like very resonant to my own story. Glad to hear that from you. So from signatures, like how did you transition to the bigger world of design? Did you start with graphic design first, web? Yeah.
So when I finished high school, I started college, graphic design. And, I have this like mixed feeling with design education. I don't know if it's like universal or if it's just to my case, where design is something that moves like this. Every year there's a new tool. Every 2 years there's new methods, there's new apps, new software. And I was being taught from a syllabus that was created in 1994, and where I never really like even talked about prototyping apps or even Photoshop. Like they didn't really care how you did it. You were getting rated, just like if you check the boxes, then you got an A. And even and that was kind of like what made me drop out of college. That I was seeing other students getting like A's because they were technically correct, but I was working at that time and I was thinking like, this would never make it out in the real world. Like this is not like client work. This is just something that checks the boxes and it's technically approved. Like people were getting A's and I was not at some point, and I was like, started to question myself, like, what are we getting assessed on? We're getting taught information. Don't get me wrong, there's classes like art history, which I really appreciated. There's all the knowledge is always helpful and all the knowledge is very useful. But at some points I was thinking, this is not gonna make me, this is not gonna polish my skills, which I really appreciate about boot camps. Even now there's like a huge boom of boot camps and everybody is into UX. They teach you more work related. This is the stuff that you will do when you're working in a project. And usually it's got research, user personas, and just like going through a step by step, which gets very cliche. but it's still way, way closer to the real experience than what college is. I never saw brief in college. We didn't even talk about briefs, not even like Figma, Sketch, like they didn't exist back in the day. And it was honestly like either web design or graphic design. Like those were like the two things. Right. There was no like UX, UI, there was no like UX research and all these things that are, you know, that are very popular now. And so by the time that I was like, in my first year, I was already like exploring techniques, and I was already like drawing and working on logos and thinking like, I wasn't thinking about specializing on something, but more like I wanted to be a generalist. I wanted to have an agency where I can offer everything, which is eventually what I ended up doing when I started my agency.
Nice. So you mentioned like you were working as you were studying. Was that a full-time job, part-time job, and how was that like?
So I always had this, I always wanted to be independent. I always wanted to be able to make money, to leave my place, not because I wanted to, you know, leave the nest, but just because I wanted to make my life for myself. So my first job was tech support tier 2 for AT&T. I was working from Argentina, doing that for the States. And that was like kind of like the job that I did after going, like I would go to college in the morning and do this at night until I found my first job at a studio as a junior designer, that I had to travel like an hour to get there. And it was always, there was like this van that would go there that would leave at 12:30, and my college would end up at 11:30. So I would have to run and sprint to actually get there, because if not, I would have to wait another hour for the van to get there. So it was like the logistics were just not there. Like it wasn't meant to be, but I did learn a lot. There was a lot of Flash at that point. And that was like my first experience, like working with clients and agencies. And it was fun, even though what I did as a junior designer was not like the most amazing and creative thing. It was more like executioner, just like pushing Flash ads out there. It was great because I learned, I felt the pressure. I felt that the pressure of like client needs this now, and it's kind of like sucky situations, but that you have to go through them at least, you know, a couple of times in order to toughen up and in order to understand how, you know, the types of clients that are out there. Then after that, I signed up for the college kind of like job board, and there was two friends, two women that were starting their magazine, and they wanted a designer. And small world, one of them knew my cousin. We got together, we had a lot of affinity, and we started talking. I want to make a magazine. We were starting a magazine. It's all about sustainability and consciousness about environment and about what we do as humans. And I love that. I'm super interested in that. And it was like an opportunity for me to be the only designer in a magazine. It didn't really matter how many magazines were printed. For me, it was like, this is like my canvas. Like I can start having a bit of my creativity and not really do a Flash ad 98 pixels by 432, which, well, yeah, don't even get me started. And that is where I learned a lot. I explored a lot. I had a lot of freedom and when it came to creativity. And that was what, I don't know what boosted me, because I feel like Webflow was what boosted me, but it was what kind of opened my world to start getting more into graphic design. And it wasn't until the last year in college that first day of class, a teacher gives us a quiz, and it was like, name 5 designers, name 10 fonts, name 5 agencies. And I was like, I don't know. It's like, and I was like, I don't want to put like Andy Warhol. I don't want to like go with like painters. What is he gonna think of me? It's like, I don't know agencies. Like I'm studying graphic design. I want to make a name for myself, and I don't know any of this. What am I doing? Right. And that was when it clicked. Like he told us like, oh my God, what is this? Like all the fonts are like Helvetica, Times New Roman, Arial. Come on, like people like, are you graphic designers or what? Yeah. Not to say anything bad about those fonts, but like everybody just went for like the basic ones. And that's where it clicked. That was when it was like, I need to do research. I need to get inspired. I need to be active on social media. I need to check, like upload stuff on Dribble or Forest, which was like a social network at that point. And that's when like the flame got ignited. And that's when I started to kind of all in graphic design.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, that magazine experience, probably, at least if I can connect it that way, probably Could see a lot of that from your designs right now. Very clean, like very magazine specs, overlapping images, very clean lines. Yeah. Would you say that informed your path forward or informed your design style moving forward, like from that Bamboo magazine experience?
Absolutely. And I honestly love when you find in design that intersection of editorial and
Yeah.
layouts and grids and columns. When you find that
Mhm.
in web, I believe that it's beautiful. And I used to work at Webflow with an old coworker, JP. He has built amazing websites for Webflow, but he told me like it's all in editorial design because there's more freedom. There's no like pixels or paddings or margins. You know, people just do whatever they want. See,
Mm.
designers like Carson, they don't care about anything. They just care about they are putting like art. Like it's treated more like art. So some things maybe don't make a lot of sense, but it looks
Mhm.
great. I've seen some magazines that they're like the legibility is like very compromised, but it's a piece of art.
Right.
There's a lot of like art and like Bauhaus influence, and there's a lot of like art movements that are like more expressed and more better represented in editorial than in web. So I would say that yes, like a lot of my influence has been in editorial and design, and a lot of the books that I have here are around like magazine layouts and editorial design.
Yeah, like that was one of my dreams before. Like when you're an early graphic designer, like you wish you could be in a magazine or like art direct a whole magazine. Definitely, that's like one of the checklist or bucket list as a young graphic designer. Design your own font, probably work in a magazine and do this and that. Thanks for sharing all of that. What's next for you? Like after Bamboo Magazine, I know you found your way in different companies as well, and then before forming your own company. So can you speak more about that?
Yes. So at Bamboo, one of the brothers of the founders, he was already working with clients and he was offering mostly branding services and packaging.
Mhm.
And at one point, we started working together and he saw that I put a lot of me into my work. I'm passionate about
Mm.
it. When it's work time, it's work time. And when there's a deadline, there's a deadline. And that's it.
Mm.
He was working with another graphic designer that wasn't really delivering on those terms, was taking long times. So he offered me like, hey, I got this project for this client. If you want to take it on, and maybe we can see about working in the future. Yeah, definitely. In a couple of days, we had the logo. We handed over the logo for the client. They loved it. Got the check, and was like, let's do this again.
Yeah.
So as we were working on the magazine, we were having like side gigs of a lot of different
Uh-huh.
projects. And that's where we thought, hey, what if we partner up and we offer like the design service as an agency to the magazine? And the magazine can be like our kind of like top client in the
Right.
beginning, but we can start working with other clients, you know, and brand our agency and start to stop being like Johnny and Andy and be Cruz Barcelona. And that was like the name of my agency. And we had that until like for the next 10 years, we were working on that. We were saying yes. Like I was saying yes to pretty much everything that was great in some aspects, not that good in other
Right.
aspects. I was saying yes to a learning management system built in WordPress where I was like, 5 a.m. thinking, what did I do? Why did I say yes to this client? I was striving to get more clients. I was striving to get my work out there. So I'd say yes to anything. Motion, I'll figure it out. Coding, I'll figure it out. And honestly, we always figure it out. There was a lot of stress, a lot of Red Bull, a lot of late nights,
Mm.
but we would always figure it out. And every time that we would finish a very stressful project, it would be like, never again. And then another client that's paying more for the same thing. Here we go again. Let's do it. So
Nice.
a lot of those like bad things or
Mm.
stressful experiences taught me a lot. And even
Right.
though that I knew that when I was coming to the States, that there's not really, if you want to work at a company, they're probably going to hire more a specialist that focuses on
Right.
different disciplines. So on UI or on visual or on brand. But I acknowledge and I know that my career as a generalist taught me a lot, either soft skills or like actual design skills, taught me a
Mm.
lot like that. And I can say yes to a lot of things. So
Yeah.
if I work like, hey, so we're trying to work on this, it's like, oh, actually, I have experience with that. You
Yeah.
find me designing HTML emails for Webflow, and then you find me designing websites, and then you find me like thinking about like documentation. So that's something that it offered me, like that my early career offered me. And then at what
Yeah.
point, being the like one of the heads of the agency, I was doing things that were not really design related. Like administrative things and talking to clients and arranging meetings and just taxes and stuff like that. I was like, I don't want to be doing this. I just want to be sitting in front of the computer, designing. I don't want to worry about this. Why does it have to be like this? And we never really thought about like growing the agency and hiring more people. It was always like me and my business partner, we would sub-hire contractors, but that was it. Argentina is also complicated to scale teams because it's very uncertain. So knowing that I was going to move to the States, it was either like, it was time to decide, do I want to open Barcelona, United States? And I'm like, I guess we would be like a multinational agency, branch Buenos Aires, branch DC, which in my head, it's me in my house and my business partner in his house. But for some clients, it could be like they have a beautiful office in DC and they have a beautiful office in Buenos Aires and probably like a team of 100. And or get a job from 9 to 5, close computer after 5, enjoy your family, enjoy food, enjoy my dog, enjoy the house. And I was ready for that. I was working way too many hours. My life quality wasn't the best. I was barely sleeping. I was not spending the amount of time and care that I wanted to spend on my family. I wasn't as healthy as I am. Not that I'm super healthy now, like before, like it's amazing how the lack of sleep and the stress, like what that can cause to your body. And I went for that. It was hard to stop or pause something that I put so much effort into, but I'm super happy with the decision, and it was a great experience.
That's awesome. A great story. I had, again, like a very similar path where started in a tiny studio, website design studio, had contractors, stayed up like early morning figuring out WordPress, PHP, like why somebody from Indonesia is hacking like this website, like they had to block us in the country, like stressing out, like no electricity. How do we launch this website that's due on a deadline? Yeah, I had hair back then, so probably like the stress, lost all my hair due to stress, like went to my beard. But yeah, like definitely a story that still it probably resonates to a lot of other people watching as well. And that's quite interesting of you shifting to a full-time job. I did that quite a lot as well. Like I moved from my own to like full-time and tried product, and now I'm on my own again. So it's really, there's no straight path to a UX to a design career, or like even development career altogether. So that's
absolutely, there's a lot of ways to get to one same point. And like honestly, I wouldn't change anything. It was great. It has been great until now.
For sure, definitely. Something I'd like to touch on is, so throughout that like agency process, you mentioned like you were doing WordPress sites. Was that something that you were like comfortable with before, like the development side of things, outside of the design side of things?
I consider myself self-taught. Google was my best friend at that point. There's a lot of unsung heroes that have helped me with code snippets or with like a couple lines of code with functions that have saved me at 4 a.m. after banging my head against the screen. Like, why is this not working? And honestly, I haven't even thought of it until now. Like maybe that frustration was what led me to Webflow eventually, and just like appreciating so much Webflow for like things that are simpler, that would be like, okay, so what plugin? And like scrolling down, there's 1,000 plugins for Google Analytics. I don't know. And you're like, which one? And there's like update plugin, and then update it, and then you refresh the site, and there's one line of error like within functions PHP. And I'm like, oh no. It's like client calling you. It's like I understand, like I know what I did, but I don't understand what is being shown on the screen right now. Like we need to hire a developer right now, like to figure this out. We always got to deadlines and we always fix things, but it was nobody knows that the panic. Nobody knows like rushing. Nobody knows like having to like randomly, spontaneously just open the computer, like what is going on. And to the point of like working on vacations. I didn't take a vacation for such a long time, just because where I traveled, I would travel with my computer, and that was it. I was working with politicians in Buenos Aires, which politicians don't really have a schedule. If something happens at 2 a.m., then it needs to go up at 2 a.m. So yeah, I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, for sure. Never having to deal with cPanel ever again, or like
god, FTP. I mean, come on.
FTP, or a wrong PHP loop
A
to
comma,
if
a comma, just like scrolling down. It's like, where, that's code.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. So you found your way into Webflow eventually, right? Because of all of these frustrations. When did you
Mhm.
first stumble upon Webflow, and then how did you find your way within Webflow?
So I tried Webflow earlier on when it was not the tool that it is today. In kind of like my experimentation phase through Squarespace and through, I never tried Wix to be honest, but I did try Squarespace, and there were other pages like Cargo Collective that were more like portfolio
Portfolio,
oriented,
yeah.
or Dunked, for example. And Webflow was the only one that I started to feel like with my code knowledge, pretty much what I'm doing here is clicking instead of writing. So instead of actually write the
Mm,
line that I know exactly what it does, I'm
yeah.
clicking and it's making like instantly. And if it breaks something, Command Z and you're back. Again, like the tool is not what it is now. So there were like frustrations and pain points and parts where like where there was a moment where I stopped using it, and then I reconnected with it when I joined Bonds. They are in Argentina. They are Webflow experts. And when I was transitioning to moving to the States, I had this moment where I was like, where I already came to the States. I was waiting for my papers and I had to go back to Argentina. And I
Mm,
was going back after telling clients like, hey, I'm moving to the States. I'm not going to be working. I was referring clients to other design studios or other friends. And when I went back, I was like, I can't just call clients like, hey, actually, I'm back. If you want to work together, let me know. I didn't do that. I try to look for places where I wanted to work, where I know that I could make impactful work. And there were two agencies. One was Bonds, and the other one was Aerolab, which is a big agency in Argentina. Agency
right.
that cares a lot about user experience, that cares a lot about the
Yeah.
process. And I was like 100% like focused on that. Like I want to focus on process and not it looks great. There's not really like a lot of process put into it. I got together with the people at Bonds, and they were super kind, and I saw what
Mm,
they were doing with Webflow, and they had like a nice team of talented people. I needed that. I was always kind of like one-on-one with my business partner, and he would get the clients, I would work, and that was our deal. We were doing great, but I was missing that feedback, that kind of like, hey, what do you think of this? Or like design rounds and meetings and talking to devs and like handoffs, like in-person handoffs. I was missing that, and I needed that. In Bonds, I could find that. 4 months later, I got my green card, and I moved to the States, and that it was amazing for 4 months. And I polished a lot of my rusty Webflow ness there.
mm,
And if it wasn't for there, I would probably not have the job that I have today.
nice. Awesome. So you worked on Webflow. How did you find your way in? Did you apply for a job, or did they find you?
So at the same time that I applied, or that I was talking to Idolab and Bonds, one of my other options was like, I know that I will go to the States at some point, and that I will be allowed to work there legally. I could start applying for remote jobs. Webflow
Mm,
was one of them. And I'm not, I know that it's a privilege, but I'm not one to apply to 100 jobs and just see how it goes. I applied to very few jobs in my life. It was the first like full-time job that I applied where it was not my language, not working in the office in another country, and I didn't really know what to expect. First time I applied, I believe I did not get an answer. And I was like, I wanted to get at least a no, because I was like thinking like maybe they'll answer tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. And by the time that I moved to the States, I'm never gonna forget this. I went to visit my sister. She lives in Florida, and we were talking, and she's like, okay, so what are you gonna do? And I was like, I don't know. I'm trying to wait to have my social security number so I can work here, and then I'm gonna apply for a job. But honestly, I don't know. And she asked me, what is your dream job? And
mm,
immediately I want to work with Webflow. I love the tool. I'm such a big fan of the tool, and I love the culture, and just what they were doing at that point was like, I want to be part of it. And you probably know, like, people love Webflow around the world. Like,
yeah.
you surf for Twitter, and there's like, people are praising Webflow and praising the people of Webflow, praising the community. And I've honestly, I've never seen a community as active, as caring and involving as the Webflow one. So I tell her Webflow, but I'm not gonna apply. I already did apply, and they never answered. What would change now? And she's like, what do you have to lose? I was like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I will.
Yeah.
So I got on Twitter. And there's a tweet by Dan Petty, a famous designer. And he says, let's change somebody's Monday. If you have a job opening at your company, post it here in the thread. And it literally had like 200 or 300 replies from director of design at Target and lead designer at Lyft and Sergi Magdalene from Webflow. We're looking to expand our team of designers. If anybody's interested, let me know. So then I commented like, hey, Sergi, I'll apply tonight. And he said, hey, can't wait. Wow, okay, like I'm getting feedback now. So I work on my resume, I polish my resume, and I applied. And a couple of days went by, if not maybe like a week, and I was thinking like, I'm not getting an answer. And it comes to the point like you can wait for a job answer, but there's only a certain amount of time that you can wait. After all, like, you gotta pay the bills, and like I can't just be like sitting down like I'm not gonna apply to any other job until Webflow says no. But eventually, after a week, I applied to two or three more companies, and then I got my response from Webflow. And when I got my response, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna flip. For me, like, it was like my dream job answering. And I was like, unbelievable. Like I just got to the United States and I'm getting this. So the first approach was getting a contract job for a month. And I was like, I'll do anything. At that point, I was working on the event side. It was like a 2 weeks contract that got extended to a 1 month contract. At that point, they were launching e-commerce. So pretty much every team was busy with that. And also it's a remote company. I'm kind of like thinking, if they're not answering, are they not liking it? Why am I not having the feedback? And it's remote work. They're busy. They're in a meeting. They're doing some other things. It doesn't mean that they don't like it. But imposter syndrome kicking in my life again and again. And at that point, I was like, they don't like it. They're gonna finish the contract, and that's it. I blew my shot at working at this company. Kind of like back and forth of things happening like this, of me like, no, I lost it. I'm like, yes, they love me. And then, no, I lost it. And then I remember at one point, I see another designer posting on Twitter, like, I'm starting at Webflow tomorrow as a designer. Thank you very much.
Oh, no.
This person for the opportunity. And I'm like, oh no, she got my job. And I'm like trying to like evaluate, what did I do wrong? Should I have done this? I should work more on wireframes? And they just like went straight to, I don't know. I just excited. And a couple of days later, my like the person who would eventually be my manager, he sends me an email like, hey, I'm so sorry. I got this email in my drafts. I never sent it. We would like to extend this contract and we are loving what you're doing. And I'm like, oh my God. And the Friday when my contract was finishing, it was 8 p.m. So I was like, it's Friday, 5 p.m. I should get an answer or an offer or something. So at 9 p.m. DC, 6 p.m. California, Ryan calls me and he tells me, I got confirmation that we want to make an offer. So, and I'm like, I'm in. And like, I haven't even said the offer. It was like, I was just like so excited. That was one of the days, like literally, that my life changed after that. Whether it is how much I grew in this company, whether it is how much I grew personally, and being able to change me as a human being for the better, for me is one of the most impactful things and me eventually could like preach and could share this that I've learned. Skills, I feel like I'm doing some of my best work, and in some cases, I'm very critical of myself, but I feel like some of my best work has been in Webflow. And being here in this company, it has been, and exposure. Like I'm here having an interview with you, and I never take any of this for granted. I'm so thankful for this, and I know that I've worked for this, but I know that there's a lot of it that's privilege, and I acknowledge that. But I'm so thankful for everything that has happened.
Awesome! Congrats, man! Congrats on the success. Like it's a great story. Being in Webflow, like you handle a lot of different projects. What are some of your favorite ones so far?
I would say No Code Conf was probably one of my favorites, just because I was working with another designer in the team, pair, super talented, not my style at all. Like very different styles, but I took it as a challenge. And she was working on the creative side and on the brand. And honestly, the first time that I saw like what the creative direction, I was like, I don't know if I would have done that, but it was very, I love the feeling that it gave me, that it was artsy. There was like parts of like art movements that I could see here. I saw like web design. There's like a lot of things that I was liking that were like kind of like brought from other mediums into web.
Mhm.
So I worked with her to bring like the web, her concept to life on the web. Um, and then eventually seeing all of that in the actual conference, environmental design, like sets and pieces and like huge like spheres and cubes on the floor. And just like, it's kind of like that feeling of working in a magazine. And then when you get like the first box of the first printed magazines and you open the box and it's like, oh my God, like I did this. And I had a very similar feeling of being at the conference and just like looking at everything. It's like, wow, like it all came to life. And it's amazing. There wasn't really like a budget limit, or there wasn't really like a creative limit too. So we had a lot of fun working on that and I loved it. And then, I don't know, like I really like what I do and I really enjoy using Webflow. I have a lot of fun doing this, but that probably is one of my favorite ones, if not my favorite one.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember the branding of that, like super, super awesome. Remember the landing page too. Great job. Johnny, what's next for you? What's up next for the next year or like even the next few months?
Webflow, I'm very devoted to not only the company, but to the company's mission. I'm like democratizing web design and enabling people to create websites and businesses. And again, JP does design at Webflow. He told me like, I'm literally bringing food to the table because of an app, because of Webflow. And when I heard that, I was like, we're changing lives here. I can provide there's two parts of it. One is I'm in this company that values me and that I can, do what I'd like to do, what I have the passion for, and take care of my family. And it's I work and have fun. And then there's this other part that I appreciate even more, which is people creating businesses, teams like MemberStack, that it's a product that was enabled by Webflow. And there's like investment rounds, and user interviews got an investment round a couple of days ago. And like every time, a couple of days ago, there was like a new round for YC venture capital, and a third of them were sites created by Webflow. I check Product Hunt every day, and there's at least 3, 4, 5, or sometimes like even 10 sites that are in Webflow. And I'm like, I'm mind blown seeing that people are, that we are the platform for that. And literally the chills when I'm talking. For me, nothing is going to take that input away from me. And I'm all about, in the next following years, working on my skills, but at the same time, I guess like fighting for this cause of democratizing web design and getting Webflow out there.
Yeah, we're part of that list of companies that use Webflow. Like not just on the marketing end, like we use MemberStack, Webflow for our student directory, like for a job site, things that people in the public don't even see. But it's running a business, like it's running, like we can raise funds based on zero code, basically. Like we don't have engineers. So thank you to you and the team definitely for the hard work. It's definitely much appreciated. Yeah.
Oh, please, thank you. And the team for choosing Webflow.
Definitely. Yeah. Anything to not get a notification from cpanel or like an update for WordPress.
Of course. Like, update your plugin.
It will break your plugins, like or something like that.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Johnny, for this great conversation. I loved hearing your story. So for now, for everyone watching, we have a treat for you guys. So we'll throw you guys to this link. So it should show up probably over here, somewhere on the screen right now. Go to that link. It's probably pasted in the description below as well. That's an icebreaker link, and people can ask Johnny questions, any questions they want about Webflow, his story, his signatures back then, like his forum signatures, whatever you want. And the best questions get two people with the best questions get Webflow merch. So we'll be giving it away. So jump on this link right now. We'll see you there soon. There's probably music playing there right now. And again, thank you, Johnny, for being here. Yeah, it was a nice conversation.
Thank you, Christian, again for having me here. Thank you for giving me a platform to share my story. And if anybody is thinking about going for it or applying for one of those jobs that you think that you might not get just because of, I don't know, socioeconomical situation or where you live, geography or anything, go for it, because if you don't try, you will never know.
Thanks. That's a great way to end this interview. Thanks again, Johnny. Jump on this link, guys. All right, bye.